VocalEye Almost Live Zoom, Iceland, hosted by Christine Malec, with special guest J.J. Hunt.
Welcome to this VocalEye Almost Live event. My name is Christine Malec, and I'm the guest host this evening, as Amy is away in Kingston, Ontario, performing her solo show, Through My Lens, which I got the chance to talk to her about. Very, very cool. We want to extend a big thank you for the donations and support from all of you. As this programming is free of charge, it means so much to see the impact that it has on the community. So if you are in a position to make a financial contribution, we invite you to click on the link in the chat or go to our website. But it's also really great to get letters of support and testimonials, so keep them coming. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, we hope that you'll like and subscribe. VocalEye is broadcasting to you all from the traditional and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, but I'm calling in and hosting from Toronto. Every day when I walk the streets of my home city, I feel proud of the cultural diversity I hear all around me. We are a country of immigrants, and many people find hope, safety, and a new home here. But before the sounds of Urdu or Mandarin were heard here, other languages were spoken. Other cultures understood diversity, sharing, and not taking more than we need. The land I occupy as I speak to you is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now the home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. It's also home to people like me who want to live mindfully and gratefully. Instead of being smug about our multiculturalism, I want to keep in mind all the ways we got it wrong. I want us all to learn to be better keepers of the land we live on and better sisters and brothers to all of our human family. Land acknowledgements are understood to be a first step in reconciliation. My intention is to find the right way for me and others to learn with humility, an open mind, and an open heart. Stories have been told from this place and from your place for thousands of years. As we listen, think, and talk, let us stay mindful of what the stories, storytellers, and listeners who occupied this land before us felt and believed. It's Wednesday, June 7th, 2023, and tonight VocalEye is proud to bring you our almost live event number 123. 123, that's so many. Tonight we'll be sharing with you another audio play from the CBC PlayME series called Iceland. We'll also be having conversation with JJ Hunt, who has been a guest on this space several times. I think just exactly as many times as me. Welcome, JJ. Are you with us here?
I am indeed, Chris.
You
Hello, hello. Nice to
are.
be in this. Nice to be in any space with you, my friend. Always nice to see you.
Oh my gosh, JJ and I just spent, about 2.5 hours on a different arts event, and we we've had a busy day together, and yet we never get tired of each other's collegial company. It's always a pleasure to be together here on VocalEye too. We were remarking just before the waiting room opened that for both of JJ said this, and I agreed 100%. Neither of us has ever been part of a group where people love to chat with each other so
Yeah.
much. We get so much feedback. It's really sweet. JJ, it's really true.
It is true. I love this space. It is a space full of people who know each other and care about each other and care about description and care about the arts and want to talk about all of it. So to be invited here is a real treat. It's a real honor. So I'm excited to be here again tonight.
Every time we're here too, I feel like just that little bit more part of the family. And I love that
Yeah,
the people use the phrase VocalEye family, and I've felt that with the team, the VocalEye team, but I'm starting to get to know the participants better too, and it's a really cozy feeling. It's very sweet. I
totally.
really
Yeah.
enjoy it. Yeah.
Every time I come, it's like, the armchair gets just a little bit comfier, a little bit
Right? A little
cozier, a little
deeper.
bit. Yeah, exactly. I'm sinking in. I'm making my groove in the chair a little bit, a little bit more with every production.
When I was listening, getting ready to listen to tonight's production, Iceland, I instead of getting to it directly from the link, I went to my podcast app and I
Yeah.
looked at the PlayMe, and oh my gosh, there's tons of stuff there. I had to go. I was swiping like crazy
Yeah.
through all of this content. Oh my gosh, what is all of this stuff? I was so interested to know that audio plays and audio only drama is still so alive. And JJ, I
Yeah.
know this is an interest of yours as well, that even long, as a kid, that you listen to stuff, the old time stuff and current stuff. And I'm
Yeah.
so curious to find out that it's still thriving as an art form.
Yeah, I mean, the Play Me productions are interesting. These are, I think, all or at least all the ones that I've found on the site are were written as stage plays and then turned into audio productions. I believe I might be wrong about that, but yeah, the audio plays as a genre is certainly alive and well. And you're right, I've been listening to these for a long time. So I'm like an old time radio, an OTR guy. I listen to Rocky Jordan, and I've got some favorites in the old time radio genre. And I think we've talked about this before. One of my earliest forays into audio plays and audio drama was Sherlock Holmes. I was a real Sherlock Holmes reader as a kid, like as a teenager, and then got into Sherlock Holmes on TV. There was A&E used to broadcast um, Sherlock Holmes television shows, like 1 hour episodes, and you could also listen to old time radio versions of Sherlock Holmes. And I really enjoyed skipping back and forth, reading, watching, and
Mm.
listening to what was essentially often the same story, because they would just take them from the Sherlock Holmes collection and dramatize them. So to be able to go back and forth, I
Mm.
think that was probably one of my early forays into what became my career, this idea of description. What's the important part of the story? What needs to be conveyed? How can you do that in audio only? Yeah, I'm right into it. How about you? You listen to other old time radio stuff or anything like that?
No, I can't say that was a thing for me, but I was just thinking while you were talking about how this is really touching a nerve for me in the best possible way, which is that one of the things I've been grooving on lately is the idea of taking the same story and telling it in
Yeah.
different media. And so, Cinderella, say, we know it as as a fairy tale, as a story, but it's a ballet,
Yeah.
it's a play, it's a movie. Um, so a dance, like a ballet, you're telling it without words even. And
Yes.
so this idea is, and it also, what you were saying also made me really think about how as the blind community, we were sort of ahead of the curve on this one, because I'd say, especially since the pandemic, but even before that, audiobooks started to gain popularity, and everyone on this call knows what a blessing that's been for the blind community, because now we can get audiobook content the same day as the release of the print book. And so as podcasting and podcast listening has become so much more mainstream, I guess maybe in a way it's not too surprising that there's so much more audio drama, that there's as much audio drama
Yeah.
as there is. And so I have sighted friends who they just listen to podcasts all the time. They're doing audio
Oh
only
yeah.
in the way that the blind community has kind of always done it. Like, I'm sure everyone here who's used audiobooks has had a book player in your pocket, and you're folding your laundry or doing your dishes, whatever. So um, it's kind of neat to see that aspect of blind culture sort of ooze its way
Yeah.
into mainstream culture. Why don't we start talking about the play this evening, Iceland? And JJ, I understand there's some images associated with this that we can start out maybe by describing.
Yeah, we can talk about some of these images of the original staging because this is an interesting piece. Iceland's an interesting piece. So written by Nicolas Billon, Billon, premiered as part of the Summerworks Festival in 2012, and then this version, this audio play version, was released in 2018. When I was doing a little bit of looking into the background of this, I was stunned by how many awards it had won. All kinds of awards starting from that first production at Summerworks, and all kinds of awards for the various productions. In fact, the playwright won the Governor General's Award for drama for this script, for this play. So this play is set against the backdrop of the 2008 banking crisis. And for those who were with us last week for Crawl Space, you might remember that one was set against that was in the 2006 kind of one of the real estate crazies, one of the real estate nutty times here in Toronto. So this is about 2 years after, and this play shares many of the same themes as Crawl Space does, which we listened to last week. This play deals with the relationships between housing and power and violence. It's a different kind of violence in the two plays, but that's something we can talk about after we've all had a listen to it. Really interesting. These are not themes that you would necessarily put together naturally, but there's a lot to say. Both of the plays last weekend and this play, Iceland, have a lot to say about those things: housing, power, and violence. This play is structured in parts like three separate one-person shows. And in fact, for the bulk of the piece, each person takes a turn, kind of one character at a time, speaking to us directly. And I was thinking about this as I was listening to it, as again, we were talking about like the difference between the stage version and the audio version. I was really trying to imagine how this would have been staged. So I looked up some of the images, and a lot of the photos that I found from various stage productions, they all seem to feature very similar staging, which is three chairs on the stage, no other props, no other backdrops, no other set pieces. And often these three chairs, one for each character, are positioned in a triangular formation, with the one chair near the front of the stage and two chairs further back, kind of closer to the sides of the stage, making a point leading toward the audience. And the key image that Rick's going to be putting up on the screen during the play, while we're actually putting on the play, is a photo of this kind of staging. It's a photo from the 2016 production that was done in Iran by Nowadays Theater. And in this photo, the stage is awash in blue light. The characters who are on stage, the performers, are also awash in blue light. Very dark, really quite dark. So the details are kind of hard to see. Again, three chairs in a triangular formation, and they're on a stage that is actually, it looks like the stage itself might be cut out into a triangle. The stage looks like an icy blue triangle that's pointed directly at us, the audience. And the person that's seated at the front of the triangle is facing us. They're really rigid, arms on the arms of this chair, very simple chair. And then behind her, at the other points of the triangle, are the two other performers, again, also seated very rigidly, and their chairs are facing one another. So there's that triangle, these 1, 2, 3 characters. Really, really interesting. The dynamics between them and as they are separate, I found it quite fascinating. It's worth noting, Chris, of course, you've listened to this too, but we should probably mention this piece begins rather abruptly. It begins
Yes.
right in the middle of the action. When you first listened to it,
I was
were you
totally
taken aback?
confused. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wait, I'm starting in the wrong place." And actually that distracted me for about 15 minutes. I kept looking around to different websites and stuff. What? What?
Yeah.
What? What? Oh,
Well,
okay. I guess I'll just start here and see.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this. I bet when you're watching this on stage, of course, there's more
Hmm.
confidence as an audience member that, of course, the actors are going to begin at the beginning. But when you're clicking a link or
Yeah.
pressing play,
Yep.
you do wonder, did I hit the wrong button?
Uh-huh.
Did I hit
Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
so it does, we do start right in the middle of the action. Especially because it was presented originally as an audio play in 3 parts, it did make me wonder, did I hit part 3 before I hit part 1?
Yes. Exactly.
No one
Exactly.
in our audience needs to worry about that.
Right. Yeah.
Rick has stitched all 3 parts together into a single piece, so you'll still hear the prompts. This is part 1, welcome to part 2, this is part 3, but it is all, we're going to play all one after the other, straight through, no intermission or anything like that. So you don't get to go to the lobby for your lobby drinks, between the pieces.
Believe me, you might want one. I'm going to give a content warning.
Yeah.
It's graphic to the point of, I would say, raunchy. So if graphic content or harsh language or strong opinions are disturbing to you, just to be warned. Those yeah, they might be triggered by some of this stuff. So I think the running time is about 58 minutes, and we will of course come back for what I'm sure will be a lively post-show chat and Q&A. So JJ, were there any other remarks you wanted to highlight before we begin?
No, I think you've hit it. That lots of raw language. So you get down. You start to remember a few new 4-letter words you might learn in this piece.
Get your
But yeah,
martini shaker going, and
exactly. And I got to say, I'm really looking forward to the post-show conversation, because there's lots to talk about in this one. It is intense, especially for those of us who have been here for 2 nights, last week
yeah,
as well.
right.
There's lots to talk about, lots to compare in those 2 pieces.
Yes,
And I'm pretty sure a lot of folks were here last week. I recognize a lot of the names
yes,
in the space. So
yeah,
yeah, looking
definitely.
forward to talking to everyone about it when it's done.
Awesome. So, Rick, whenever you are ready, we are also ready.
Episode 1 of 3 of Iceland.
And then there's no more shouting. It's quiet. I hide in the bathtub, but it's not a good hiding place because the shower drape is clear plastic you can see right through. The door opens, and I think it's the John coming to get me, but no, it's a woman. His wife? She walked right past me like she doesn't see me. It's hard to not notice someone sitting inside of the bathtub, but she doesn't. Instead, she pulls up her skirt and pulls down underwear and sits on the toilet and urinates. Then she does something very strange. She turns left and makes to grab for some toilet paper, but toilet paper's on the right. When she realized this, she stopped, and she put her head in her hands, and she cries. I think this is a good time to leave, but that's when she looks up, and she sees me. She doesn't say anything, she just stares at me. I notice the woman doesn't wear a ring. The John doesn't either, so maybe she's just girlfriend. She's shaking a little bit. I get up, and that's when she speaks.
Who are you?
Her voice is calm. This makes me very nervous. No, make me very scared. And it's silly, but ever since I was a little girl, I can't lie when I'm scared. My parents say, we have lied all our life so that you don't have to.
Who are you?
I'm Cassandra. It's my real name. Matthias say it's dangerous to tell anyone our real name, but as I said, I can't lie when I'm scared. The woman look at me, look at the way I'm dressed. She frowned when she sees that I'm wearing only lingerie. I feel like a little animal caught in a flashlight. I can't move a muscle.
Did he hurt you?
This is not what I expected to say. Make me feel a bit better. I begin to doubt that she's girlfriend. It's not a question that a girlfriend would ask. I shake my head. She says,
Is he your boyfriend?
no. She nod like somehow this explain everything. She remembers then that she's on the toilet. She look at me and has punastab turned very red. I can't remember the word. I say, okay, I leave you. She doesn't look at me or say anything, so I step out of the bathtub and leave. I close the door behind me, and I remember then that my dress is still inside the bathroom. I must wait for the woman to finish before I leave. I turn around. I see the John lying on the floor, and the carpet is stained with blood. At first, I think he's dead, but then I notice there are little bubbles of blood on his lips. He's still breathing, but with much difficulty. I understand now why the woman was shaking. Maybe the John attacked her and she defended herself. Or maybe she... I must call for help. I look for my purse. It's stuck under the, lower leg, the, calf. Yeah, the calf of the John. My phone is in my purse. It takes a few pulls to get it loose. I take out my phone and press 9 and 1, and then I remember Matthias say I must never call police from my phone, that it could be traced back to me. If I need to call the ambulance, I must use the John's phone. But I do not see his cell phone. And that's when I realized that I'm in big trouble. My fingerprints are everywhere in the apartment. If I call for help, they will have a record of my voice. And they come find me, they will arrest me, and I'm only student visa, so of course they will deport me. Even if I explain what happened, they will not believe me, because... My mother, she's some history professor. That's why she named me Cassandra, the Greek woman who's cursed by the gods with power to tell the future, but no one ever believed her. Exactly like history professor, Mem says. And I tell her, I can't tell the future, and she says, it's not so hard, just look at the past. She's very proud when I tell her that I want to become a history professor like her. Perhaps it make up for Yanu, who... Yanu is my twin brother. He nicknamed me Netud, which means cursed, and I call him Peru, which is Estonian word for fart, so we're fair. We love each other very much, but I know that Yanu is not the brightest boy in the world. When I go back to Estonia last summer, I'm just finished first year of masters at U of T. And one night when I'm back, Yanu comes home and he's beat up. Yeah, he lose 3 of his teeth and one of his bone here, the eye bone or orbit bone, is broken. He won't tell us what happened. We take him to the hospital and they call the police, but Yanu, he refused to say anything about it. I notice that Mem is crying. I have never seen my mother cry, not even after my father died. I take her aside and ask her what is going on. She tells me that Yanu gambles. He spends his nights watching lots of television, and now he thinks he can become world poker champion. I don't say this out loud, but to myself I think, but he's such a bad liar. And that not worst part, Mem says. Yanu has borrowed money from the Abchak, the Estonian mafia, and they have come to Mem's house about repaying Yanu's debt. Mem said to me, it's not your problem, that I must continue my study and make a life in Canada, but how can I do that? She's my mother. Yanu is my twin brother. My baby brother, because I'm 7 minutes older. We were born on the Baltic, it's in English the Baltic chain. August 23, 1989, 2 million people gathered to join hand in hand from Tallinn to Vilnius, a human chain 600 kilometers long for peaceful support of independence of Estonia and Latvia and Lithuania. How did they organize this without internet? I don't know. And Mem was very pregnant back then. My father did not want her to go, but she yelled at him, I'm a history professor, how do I not go? That's my mother. She's very donkey when she wants to be, yeah? And so they go to be part of the chain. How proud they were to be there. And then her water break. People around her panic, yeah? They wanted to go to the hospital, but my mother should be like a donkey again and say, I will not break the chain. My children will be born right here. My father tried to reason with her, but she refused to let go of anyone's hand. Doctors called, and a few hours after, me and my brother are born. We make the cover of the Yes, the Express, the first children of the revolution. My mother swears she never let go of anyone's hand on the chain during the whole thing. However, she also say that me and Yanu come out holding hands. This we know is metaphor. And this is why it's hard for me to let gambling debt not be my problem. When Mem and Yanu bring me to the airport, I remember giving a hug to Yanu, and he say to me, "You're so lucky, Kessa." And I say, "Why?" And he says, "Because you live in a place that believes in meritocracy." I laugh because Yanu not use big words like this very often. Mem laughs too, very loud. Yanu turns to her and says, "What?" And she says, "There's no meritocracy in a country that sells lottery tickets." As I hug her goodbye, I promise to send money to help them. Back in Toronto, I go to student services and ask about jobs available. There are a few jobs on campus, and a couple of coffee shops have positions, but when I ask how much I make, I'm sorry, but it does not add up. The math. Maybe if I work full-time, but how can I study if I'm busy 40 hours? No, I must find work that pays better for not as many hours. There are not many jobs like that. One of my roommates tells me that stripping, perhaps, is good. Some places treat girls okay, but they say to me, "No, you don't have big enough breasts. Maybe if you get a boob job." I work at massage parlor for a little bit. Money is okay, but I work very late hours that affect my study. And one day I work on client, Matthias. Unlike most people, he does not assume that I'm Russian. He begins to talk to me in Estonian. We realize that we're both from the same area, and his cousin is a friend of mine. It's a very strange conversation because I'm holding his penis the entire time. Matthias owned an escort agency, and I begin to work there. Because we're both Estonian, he protects me and I can choose my own schedule. I work 10 hours a week, make enough to live, and send my mother money every month. I tell her it's a bursary I win for history paper. Of course, I'm ashamed that I lied to my mother, but what else can I do? I came here to teach history. I came here to become a Canadian and marry a good man and raise a family. I work hard. I am a good person. So how did I go from that to standing in stranger's apartment in my underwear with dying man on the floor? Jumalaitämin. If police find me here, I will be deported, or worse, if they think I do it. But I must help him, yeah? I must. There are little bubbles on his lips. He is still breathing. What must I do?
Episode 2 of Iceland.
Okay, you want some advice? Here it is, free of charge. Never buy anything Russian except for vodka and hookers. Maybe it's some kind of communist mojo in the water, but the vodka's potent and the women can suck dick like nobody's business. Let me tell you about, forgot her name. Anyway, she's a hot little number, this one. It's a tricky price point, the $300 hooker. You know they'll be groomed, have all their teeth, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be head turners. But occasionally, it works out. More bang for your buck, am I right? Yeah, nothing? Okay. Anyway, I ask her, "You're Russian, right?" And she says,
Yes, you are a businessman?
Okay, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but let's be clear about something. Businessman is a useless fucking word, because who isn't one today? A drug dealer? Businessman. Pimp? Businessman. Plumber? You get the idea. I'm in real estate, but that doesn't... Okay, I know we don't like to use the C word in this country, but let's call a spade a spade. I'm a capitalist, okay? Capital C, free market type. Why? Because capitalism rocks, and if you think otherwise, well, hey, I'm sure you're a nice person, but you're a complete fucking idiot. Sorry. So, as I was saying, why overcomplicate things? Yeah, sure, I said, I'm a businessman.
What kind of business?
I flip houses, and no, I'm not going to explain what that is, because right now, let's be honest, time is money, and that's when she says...
What can I do for you?
See, now that is a thing of beauty. If you've ever asked yourself, why is money good, then here's your answer. It simplifies everything. This relationship is simple. She's the hooker, I'm the John. Service provider, customer, supply, demand, seller, buyer, that's it. Straightforward, uncomplicated, symbiotic. You know what money is? Money is perfect. And then... You're gonna love this. I ask her, you take checks, right?
No.
Oh, for fuck's sake. It's a joke. Christ, Russians. Wallets, for the record, fucking useless. Why bother? No one can see you've got money. And this, each and every one of you is looking at my money right now, am I right? Of course you are. There's no shame. This means business. Would you fuck with a guy who carries a money clip? Exactly. So, back to the question. What can she do for me? Well, let's see. You want to give her the right idea, you know, some guidance, something she can relate to. For example, I want you to suck my dick like we're on the bread line and I am holding the very last loaf. Epic. I can tell some of your delicate sensibilities have been ruffled. And I know this is Canada and everything, but I'm not going to apologize. Look, let's keep some perspective. She has a skill that I do not possess. Therefore, I'm paying for said skill. Very well, I might add. And I'm a good tipper. You all good tippers out there? My point isn't about tipping. My point is that every left-wing, bleeding heart, Jack Layton, bobblehead-owning liberal has a dirty little secret that they keep tucked away out of view in the hopes that no one will ever find out that deep down, they're a capitalist at heart. That's right, every one of them. Of course they'll deny it. It's like that story about, was it Churchill? I think so. Anyway, he asked this lady, "Will you sleep with me for £1 million?" And she thinks for a moment and says, "Yes." Then Churchill says, "Will you sleep with me for £5?" And she's like, "Mr. Churchill, what kind of woman do you think I am?" And he says, "We've already established that. Now we're just negotiating." Negotiate. I love that story. My point is, if somebody offered me $1 million to fuck them, yeah. Sure, my price point's higher than the hookers, but we're not different. And liberals fucking hate to hear that. But the truth is, they're just as scared about the stock market tanking because they're invested. Ethical funds, sure, or in real estate. In any case, they're looking for the same thing, a profit. Buy low, sell high. And that's capital C capitalism, ladies and gents. Okay, 10 years ago, you could get away with savings account when interest rates paid 5.25%, but today, please. Huh. I went on a date once with this smoking hot chick. I mean, we rented Indecent Proposal, you know, where Robert Redford offers, what's her name, G.I. Jane, $1 million to sleep with him, and she does. Afterwards, both like, yeah, it was pretty good, I liked it, etc. But then I realize she likes it because, quote, in the end, it was about love and fidelity. I'm thinking you're fucking crazy, but I keep my cool and say, no, really, it's about money and capitalism. She's like, what? No, it's about how love can't be bought. To which I respond, not unreasonably, she fucked him for $1 million and then left her husband to be with him. And she says, but she goes back to her husband because she loves him. And I say, okay, I may have raised my voice a little bit. She goes back to her husband because women are fucking irrational. Boom. That didn't go over so well. Too bad. She's so hot. Anyway, this is a good example of the thing that annoys me, that drives me fucking crazy, actually, about progressives in general. It's not that they disagree with me, hell, I disagree with lots of people, is that they don't have the balls to stare reality in the face. I mean, they're incapable of taking a good, hard look at the truth of the world that we're living in. Okay, for example, my latest flip. Nice one-bedroom in Liberty Village. You know why it's called that, by the way? Liberty Village? It's in honor of the countless yuppies saddled with a 25-year mortgage. Who says condo developers don't have a sense of humor? Anyway, I bought the unit for a song from some over-leveraged dumbass from Buffalo. He had buyers lined up, but he sold it to me. Why? Because I could pay cash. Less waiting, less paperwork, less headaches, eh? Uncomplicated. From there, it's just a question of making a few cosmetic changes, staging it properly, and then... ta-da! Spectacular premium one-bedroom in the heart of trendy Liberty Village. Floor-to-ceiling windows with cozy balcony and view of the lake. Chef-inspired kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. Bathroom upgraded with rainforest shower. Perfect for the urban professional. Yeah, rainforest shower? It's not gonna win a prize, okay, but it will net me a 40 to 60K profit in about a month. Thank you very much. Anyway, so the flip. This stupid woman, she comes to visit the condo. Actually, that's probably not fair, because I think she might be mildly retarded or something. Asperger's or whatever, wouldn't look me in the eye. Anyway, she comes in, goes over the place like she's some kind of forensic house inspector or whatever. 35 minutes. Seriously? 35 minutes in a one-bedroom apartment. I'm exhausted just thinking about it. And then you know what she says? She says she can't afford it. What the fuck is that? Seriously, now let me be clear. I'm not pissed off because she wasted my time. Well, okay, maybe a little bit, but that's not the main thing. Of course she can afford it. She chooses not to. In her mind, she's thinking, oh, I'm poor, but I'm going to visit an apartment I can't afford anyway because a girl can always dream. And that may sound reasonable until you realize this is the same girl who drinks fair trade, organic, shade-grown, hand-picked, wind-power roasted coffee. If any of you got a warm, fuzzy feeling about that, I think you should know you're paying 3 times what a normal human being pays for coffee. Is fucking coffee. And then she comes crying when she doesn't have money to buy a house. Please, she chooses not to be able to afford it. If she took a good, hard look at the truth of the world that she's living in, maybe she'd realize that we're living in an age of easy credit. That, by the way, is not a dirty word when it allows you to buy a fucking house. But no, she'd rather buy $5 coffee and feel good about herself. We know what? That's fucking stupid. She can get on her bike and pedal back to Parkdale while she can still afford it. I know. Some of you are thinking, now hold on there, bucko. Did you not see what happened down in the States? Well, yeah, kinda did. But you're blaming the wrong people. Look, credit is not inherently good or bad, it's just credit. People, on the other hand, can be smart, stupid, or absolutely fucking moronic. And it's that last group that I wish would learn the cardinal fucking rule: do the math. If you don't, then I'm sorry, but shut the fuck up, because that is exactly like walking into a bank, buck naked, holding up a sign that says, fuck me up the ass for 5% down. Anybody? Anybody? And then later turning around saying, hold on a minute, I think I was raped. Yeah, I know. Now you're thinking, easy for you to say, Gandhi. You're good at math. Hey, that's racist. I'm Pakistani. I'm just joking. I mean, I am Pakistani. I was born here, but just Gandhi was Indian. And that retarded woman, totally uncomfortable that I'm, ethnic. All the little telltale signs. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's because you're white. Though on some level she's better. Well, no, she's more honest than those white people, because there's always white people who act all friendly and polite because, they wouldn't want you to think that they're racist or anything. Oh, yes you are. And oh, we know. To be clear, the moral of this story ain't do the math and don't be a racist, although that's good advice, but no. The moral here is that there's only one thing in this world that is perfect. Perfect because it's a perfect reflection of its owner. If you're an idiot, that's what your money will be. If you're a smart guy, exactly. My guess is you've never heard of Dick Burnett. He's an expert on real estate tax liens. All right, that may not sound exciting. I went to his conference in Vegas a few years ago, just around the time the mortgage collapse was starting. I had an intuition it was going to be big. So I signed up at the last minute, paid an arm and a leg for my hotel because it was the same weekend as the big porn convention. So I'm there with like about 50 other guys in one of the smaller conference rooms at the Candlewood. And this big, fat bastard goes up on stage, takes a mic, and says, "I guess all the women are at the other convention." Because of the porn. And then he says, "What have y'all asked Santa for Christmas?" A few of us giggle, like, what the fuck? But he repeats the question, and some guy shouts out, "Pussy!" Dick Burnett chuckles, shakes his head like we're a class of mildly retarded children. "This is what you should all be asking Santa for." And on the screen behind him appears a map of Iceland. "Santa's feeling mighty generous this year, boys, courtesy of over-leveraged Icelandic fishmongers. Now, I want to be clear. Bless them for trying. We all get a kick at the can. And they came out swinging. They privatized and deregulated their banks. There wasn't a debt obligation that in lie can buy on the spot. It was Christmas 24/7 in Reykjavik. But there is always a reckoning. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away, gentlemen. And Icelanders must have slept through history class, because this is exactly how their fishing industry collapsed. Ooh-wee, y'all gonna make a boatload of money. Because you can put lipstick on a pig, boys, and you can dress a fisherman in a suit. But the pig's still a pig, and the fisherman..." Then Dick Burnett puts his hands together like this and says, "Let's praise God for Iceland, where they don't know the difference between fishnet and net worth, where they fail to understand that over-leveraging in about getting older, and where there lives the greediest and dumbest motherfuckers to ever handle a derivative. Lord, grant us wealth, so that by this time next year, we'll all be able to afford a suite at the Sands Hotel and have the porn stars knocking on our door. Amen." Give the man credit for showmanship. That night, I run into Dick Burnett at the bar, offer to buy him a drink. "To Iceland." Yeah, Dick says, downs his drink. "Hey, can I ask you a personal question?" "Sure." "Halim, you're a Muslim?" I nod and say, "Not a very good one. I gathered as much from the scotch in your hand. Lapsed Baptist myself, more of a Benny Frankus these days." "A what?" Dick Burnett chuckles, pulls out $100 bill from his money clip, lays it flat on the bar. "Benny Frankus believes in the higher power of the C note, my friend. Is there anything in the world as powerful and versatile as this piece of paper? It is omnipotence incarnate. You want to eat at the finest establishments, you want to drive the fastest cars, fuck the prettiest girls, ask and it shall be given you, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you." He puts his hand on my shoulder. And if that's not enough, you can expunge your guilt by donating it to charity. You'll even get a tax receipt for your troubles, see? He's a good and loving God. He even has a Muslim and a Baptist drinking together in Vegas. I notice at this point Dick's looking over at a tall redhead sitting at a table. She smiles at him. I lean in and whisper, "Hooker?" "Son, I'm a 350-pound fat fuck named Dick. Yeah, she's a hooker." And I gotta say, I have a lot of respect for Dick in that moment, because here is a guy who stares reality right in the eyes. Then Dick says, "I hope she swallows." I take a look at the redhead again. Not a chance. You've little faith, Halim. Trust in the Benny Frank. If she's not amenable, you pull one of these puppies out and show it to her so she knows you mean business. And tell her that if she swallows, this'll be her tip. I ask him, "It works?" He looks over at the redhead again. Luke 12:43. "Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes." Dick folds his $100 bill into a small square. "I always ask them to stick out their tongues when I'm done. And when they do, I call it giving Holy Communion." I say it's a perfect metaphor for the banking crisis. Dick chuckles and shakes his head. "Actually, that's not quite right, because in the banking crisis, it's the whore who's gonna be paying us back for the privilege." He's pretty quick on his feet. But it makes sense, though, doesn't it? I mean, you hear liberals go on and on about equality. They go on and on about unions and affirmative action and all that communist bullshit. Change the world, sure. End poverty. Yep, people first. Okay. But when someone walks in, slaps his money clip down on the table and says, "Who's ready to swallow?" Well, you don't have to ask twice. Here's the cold, hard truth of the world that we're living in. Abstract ideas, ethics, morals don't stand a chance against a pile of cold, hard cash. Hey, look, I put my money where her mouth is. Oh, that reminds me of, so the Russian hooker, she's giving me head, and I ask her, "Hey, what's your name again?" And just as she's about to answer, I say, "Oh, don't talk with your mouth full." Oh, come on. Newsflash, it's not the nicest or prettiest or smartest person who wins. Okay, here's a better one for you. What is communism doing right now? It's sucking my dick. For fuck's sake. Is there some kind of veto on a sense of humor or something? Seriously, will you fucking laugh already?
Episode 3 of Iceland.
I have a question. But before I say anything else, I want you to know that I'm not special or exceptional or whatever. Feels strange having to say that to preempt a conversation that way. I'm sure you've noticed that the individual, or perhaps I should say that the ambition of individuality has become very fashionable lately, and the idea that we are all unique in our own way, which is true on a simplistic level, is not, I think, is not true in a greater sense. We are instruments, and there's no shame in that, right? I had a guinea pig when I was a child. I called him Alphonse, which is a great name, but my father always called him Al, which drove me crazy, and he'd say, "Anna, don't be a banana," which was his idea of a joke. No. Anyway, Alphonse was pretty smart for a guinea pig. I kept treats for him in one of my drawers, and whenever I'd go to open it, he'd squeak, like guinea pigs do. because he thought maybe I was going to feed him, which I did sometimes, but sometimes I was just getting a pair of whatever, socks. Point is, I let Alphonse out of his cage from time to time to run around my room, stretch his stubby little legs and all that, but I kept the door shut because we lived on a farm and there's no way he'd survive out on his own. I mean, foxes and whatnot. He wasn't that smart, but one day my mom opened the door while he was out and Alphonse made a run for it. Little bugger was quick, too. We chased after him, but he ran out of the living room couch and we couldn't find him after that. I cried. My mother comforted me, but I could tell she was getting impatient. Finally, she said, "Anna, enough. It's just a guinea pig." Which surprised me, because she preached that God loved all living things, some more than others, dear. We found Alphonse the next morning on the porch. He'd eaten something, fertilizer, I think, and he was not doing so good. I was racked with guilt. I never should have let him escape. I made a nest out of a shoebox and stored him under my bed. At first, he just pooped and barfed and wouldn't eat anything I gave him. Then after a while, he went quiet and laid still. The next morning, my mom comes into my room and there is a sharp smell. She doesn't say anything, just kind of scowls, crinkles her nose, and I want to die. I'm so embarrassed because, of course, I know what it is, so I just say, "I tooted," and my mom goes, "Well, it doesn't smell like vanilla, dear." My mother is a blunt instrument. By the third day, my father comes to investigate, and he finds Alphonse pretty much on the doorstep of death, wheezing, and his eyes fluttering open and shut. My father takes him away, and my mother turns to me. "How could you let that poor creature suffer?" I tell her I thought I could nurse him back to health. She shakes her head and says, "Do you think you get to decide about life and death, young lady? Shame on you, Anna Godwin. Shame on you. We are instruments." Anyway, that's not... I'm not here to talk about my guinea pig. I was at the Sputnik Cafe, little hipster place on King, right? So I'm browsing the internet, but there's this guy sitting at the next table. He's chatting up this girl, this lady friend of his, but I feel like every third word out of his mouth is either 4 letters long or a blaspheme, and I can't concentrate anymore. I interrupt the guy, say, "Excuse me, but would you mind not taking the Lord's name in vain?" He turns to me and gives me a look, a kind of vapid, empty look, not unlike a cow, actually. And he says, "Excuse me?" And I repeat myself. He shakes his head a little, like he's having a brain toot. And I think, no, not a cow, a donkey. He looks like a donkey. Anyway, he gives me the usual blah, blah, blah about free speech, mind my own business, etc., etc. And it's wonderful because all I do is keep my cool and say, "I don't mean to upset you. I'm just asking." The lady friend puts her hand on his arm and tells him to let it go. The young man turns to her, and that's when it happens. The quick flush of his cheeks, the sharp rise of red in his face. Shame. And in that moment, I love him, because that is God, showing him the error of his ways, showing him that he's not special. Anyway, he goes back to talking to his lady friend, but it's not the same as before. He's not so reckless anymore. He knows someone's watching. He knows someone's listening. This gives me hope, because people can be changed by Christ's love, right? Anyway, I'm at the cafe to use the internet. I'm in the market for a home. My dad's going to try to help me out a bit with the down payment. He thinks it's best if I buy something, and that's smart, because it's an investment and I can't sleep on my cousin's couch forever. So I'm browsing through MLS, checking out different one-bedrooms in the area, and then wham. there it is, staring me in the face. At first I'm like, look, I was just living there, like last month. But there is no doubt it's my apartment up for sale. I mean, sure, looks a little different. It's been repainted and a lot of fixtures and things have been changed, but there's a picture of the balcony and there's my little hibachi I'd forgotten to take with me. I checked the address, Suite 633. Understand. This was my first apartment alone. I was, happy. For 2 years, it was home until 3 months ago when the owner calls me up out of the blue, says he has to sell the apartment. He's American, something about the market collapsing, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand very much about that. Now, the thing is, I'd expect the buyer to honor my lease, right? Except the guy who buys it decides he wants to move in, so I'm stuck having to move out of my home. And now here we are a month later, and now it's for sale. I tweet about this and everyone is appalled. My friend Rachel from Colorado messages me saying, well, you are going to visit, right? And I message back, I can't afford it. And she says, no, but aren't you curious? And well, yeah, of course I am curious. I call up the real estate agent because I am. It's true. I didn't lie. I am genuinely interested in buying it. The home that I love, he calls it a condo. We arrange a visit that very afternoon. We meet at the coffee shop across from my place. The real estate agent is an Indian guy, but it's okay because he's dressed in a suit. He says,
Can I get you anything?
no, thank you. I don't want him to get the wrong idea. This is a meeting, not a date, I mean. Anyway, we go over to the apartment, and in the elevator, I almost give myself away by pressing the button for the 6th floor, but I catch myself just in time. And the Indian guy presses it. Suddenly, I get worried because what if I run into one of my neighbors? I mean, I never really spoke to any of them, but enough to nod. And I'm thinking if one of them sees me now, they might be like, hey, it's been so long. Where have you been? There goes my cover. But I don't run into anyone. So he lets me into the apartment and, okay. It's a lot nicer. A lot nicer than when I lived there. I mean, we're talking about an upgrade from IKEA to Martha Stewart, and the guy, the Indian guy, he notices that I'm looking really closely at all the little details that have changed, you know, cupboard handles and the like, and so I say, the owner's done a really great job with the place, and he says,
Thank you.
thank you. It takes my brain a second to process that. Thank you. He is the owner. This guy, this Indian guy who is a real estate agent, is the guy who bought my home, who is going to live here and is now selling it. You're the owner.
Yes. You know, what I love is that I sell homes. Not condos, but homes. Places where people really feel like it's the place for them. I think
Blah,
that's
blah,
important
blah, blah, but all I'm thinking is, you dirty piece of shit! No, I can't believe I said that. This man took my home from me. Anyway, so he goes on, but I stop listening and think very, very bad things, but I remain calm. I remember to stay calm. I ask him, how long have you been here?
Not very long. I expected to stay longer, but I'm going back to Pakistan for a little while.
I thought you were Indian.
No, I'm Canadian. My parents are from Pakistan.
Okay. It's awkward. I didn't mean anything by it, but he's looking at me like, I don't know, like I'm stupid or something.
So, are you interested?
It's a bit outside my price range. This annoys him, I can tell. He's like, why the did you waste my time or whatever? I'm good at reading people like that.
It's priced very aggressively for the market.
What does that even mean? Prices can be high, they can be low, but they cannot be aggressive. A price is not an animal. He hands me his business card. I won't even try to pronounce his name, and I leave. I don't want to be there anymore. I go back to the coffee shop and end up chatting online with Rachel and Andrea and Rob. I tell them what happened. I'm upset. Andrea says I should call the police. Rob says he hasn't done anything illegal, unethical maybe, but not illegal. Rachel Googles the guy and sends me a link. It's a picture of these guys at some kind of rally, and one of the guys is on a megaphone. Rachel asked me if that's the guy, as in, is the guy on the megaphone the real estate agent? I tell her I'm not sure. It's not a great picture taken on a phone, I think, and it's hard to make out the features. I mean, it is the right skin color and really dark hair and stuff, but let's be honest, it is not always super easy to tell them apart. Rachel says that he is a troublemaker in Pakistan, probably with links to Al-Qaeda, like a terrorist. I tell her that he was well-dressed, and didn't have a beard or anything. That doesn't matter, she says. In fact, that's one way they integrate to infiltrate. Rob and Andrea pipe up at this point, and they're both like, yeah, we can't have Al-Qaeda Nazis bullying us around, blah, blah, blah. Well, okay, but let's not exaggerate. I mean, maybe he is just a guy, right? And Rachel says, yeah, but you can't just let this go. You've got to do something. And you know what? She is right. This is my home we're talking about, right? So I'll go talk to him and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll get an apology. So you see my intentions were good, right? Andrea says, just be careful. But don't worry, I don't go anywhere without my pepper spray. So I go back. I know the door code downstairs. They haven't changed it. Up the elevator to the door, and I'm about to knock when I listen and I hear moaning. Not very loud, but definite moaning. And I remember then that Muslims pray 5 times a day and they do it out loud. So I figured that's what he's doing, and that gives me pause. Because I would never want to interrupt anyone while they're praying, right? So I wait. When the moaning stops, I knock. There's jostling of some kind. Is someone else in there? Door opens and the Indian guy answers it, but he is looking a little worse for wear. He's tucking in his shirt.
It's you.
Yes. And he just stands there, doesn't move or anything. He's not inviting me in, and that makes me suspicious. There is also a smell. There is a definite smell in the air.
What do you want?
I'll tell you what, there's no more of that smooth real estate talk now. I wanted to tell you that I lived in this apartment before you bought it.
Okay.
You evicted me. This was my home.
Listen, I don't know what your deal is. I'm really sorry you got evicted and all that, but I own this condo, yeah?
I understand that, sir. I thought the sir was important. But you've really put me out.
Uh-huh.
How do you plan to atone for this?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm about to answer when he says...
I suppose you want money. Is that it?
Now, let's be honest. That is a weird thing to say. He puts his hand in his pocket, like he's gonna take out his wallet, but it's not there, so he turns and goes back in, and I follow him.
Fucking
Excuse me.
I didn't say you could come in.
Oh, well, now that's rich. He grabs his wallet clip or something and pulls off $300 bills. Who carries $100 bills around? I am sorry, but that is odd.
Here, Go find yourself a hobby, will
I
you?
look at the money.
Take the goddamn money and get out of here.
Please do not take the Lord's name in vain. And he kind of scrunches up his face when I say that, and it's like I've just told him the funniest joke he has ever heard. But it is not funny. This is my home we're talking about, right? I wait for him to stop laughing. Sir, I don't appreciate your mocking. I'm only asking that you respect my belief in a higher power. He waves the money in my face.
This is the higher power.
I stay calm. I wait. I wait for the shame to rise in him, but there is nothing. There is not the faintest trace of red in his cheeks, so I can't help but ask myself, is God absent from this man? He tries to give me the money again to forcibly put it in my hands. He grabs my arm. Stop!
Take the money and get the fuck out of here!
I reach into my purse, pull out my pepper spray, and point it at him.
Whoa, now, let's calm down.
I am perfectly calm. You're the one who's grabbing me.
I'm sorry. Okay, listen, what did I ever do to you? I don't even know you.
I was evicted because of you.
It's not my fault the owner sold the condo. This whole situation is not my fault.
Oh, fine then. Whose fault is it? He looks at me and says with a straight face. He says this to me with a straight face.
Iceland.
Excuse me?
If you're looking for someone to blame, blame Iceland.
Shame on you. Shame on you for treating this like a joke. I spray him right in the face.
What the fuck?
Starts to howl like a dog. I must have got him good too, because he starts to heave and wobble, and then he trips over a purse and falls backwards, and there's an awful sound. Cracking sound as he hits his head on the coffee table. And the thought that's going through my mind is, I saw something like this on Law and Order. He is lying on the ground. He's not moving. I'm shaking. It's really weird, but I'm shaking like a Quaker, as my mom would say. I kneel by him. I can't get too close. I'm having trouble breathing because of the pepper spray, but he is still alive. His chest still rises, and he's making a wheezing sound. There is also some blood. There is some blood pooling around his head, and I don't know what to do. I pray. I pray, and I hope God will hear me and tell me what to do, right? Show him mercy. Do not let him suffer. I take one of the pillows off the couch and I put it over his face. And I sit on the pillow. I sit on the pillow. And do you want to know what's going through my head? The question. The same question I want to ask you. Why did God not tell me to call an ambulance?
I decide to call Matthias, but that's when the bathroom door opens.
What do you know about Iceland?
What?
What do you know about Iceland? It's a country.
Yes, of course.
Well?
It's where the volcano erupted. A few years ago, planes couldn't fly.
That's not it.
In the novel Brave New World is where people are sent if they have independent thought. They're sent to Iceland, so they live far away from people.
That doesn't make any sense. What did he mean? Why would he say that?
I'm sorry, I do not know. The look on the woman's face make me think of expression menus. She would say this to me and Yennu when we were disappointed. She'd say, it means life is not rainbows and puppy dogs. The woman turns to leave, and I realize I must do something if the John is to live. So I say, please, can you call ambulance?
Don't you dare look at me like that, you dirty fucking whore.
She puts a hand over her mouth, and again her cheeks get very red. She opens her bag and takes out, I don't make this up, she takes out a piece of soap. She bites it. She puts the soap back in her purse and leaves. She doesn't look at me. I expect her to slam the door, but she closes it quietly behind her. Now I really do not know what to do. And that's when I hear something. It's a sound like a bottle of Coke that is opened very slowly. There is now an odor in the air, a very strong, very bad odor. I look at the John and I realize what has happened. He has how you say, like his bowels have empty. He's dead. I get dressed and call Matthias. I tell him about the dead John. He stays calm and says, "It's no problem, I'll send someone." But when I tell him about the woman, he's agitated. "You let her leave? Get out of there." "But what about fingerprints?" "It will not matter," he says, "if police find you in the apartment." We argue. Does he not understand that I want to make my life here, that I cannot afford to have my fingerprints in the system? "I will clean the apartment with bleach," I say. He yells at me, "You don't have time." And then he's silent. I can hear him thinking. "Casa," he says finally, "if you're that worried, burn it." The cupboards are empty, but I find a bottle of vodka. I begin to pour it on the furniture, but I stop when I notice the black grill to make food. You know, on the balcony? There's a bottle of lighter fluid beside it. I open the lighter fluid and I spray it on the curtains, on the furniture, on the walls, on everywhere. It's middle of afternoon, this is important. It means there will not be many people in the building. I just need it long enough to burn the apartment. I take the cloth hanging on the oven handle and I marinate it in the vodka. I push it down the neck of bottle a little bit so I have something like a Molotov cocktail. I light it. I throw it into the living room. It lands on the corner of coffee table and shatters into many pieces. I watch as very quickly fire spreads through the apartment. It will not take long. I leave and go across the street to coffee shop. I sit and watch as smoke comes out and the fire alarm in the building goes off. Flames now come out of the window and people evacuate from building and make a crowd in front. It takes only a few minutes for the fire truck to arrive and I think this is a good time to leave. On my way out, I look once more at the apartment and smoke and flames are very thick now. It looks like there's a tiny volcano inside the apartment. And there are two young men standing next to me, both dressed in suits. One of them turns to me and says, "What happened?" I should not have said anything. I should have just walked away, but how to explain? He looked like Yennu, this man. Not exactly, of course, but he have the same eyes as him. And perhaps this is why I suddenly feel the urge to scream, to yell at the man. I want to say, "It's your gambling debt. Mison vigasinuga. Mison vigasinuga. Kasaned mirasatit. Kasai moista tagayerki omategavust. Mixai opin minivekust. Mixai nosta em olema motatoloma. Mixai yaga. Mison ni hirmutaver dogosakoga. Yakusma olema lopos kuimaniat kapseratiet. Mison vigasinuga. But instead, I swallow these words and say to him, something to do with Iceland. He looks at me like I'm crazy. He and his friend laugh. He says, okay then. And my throat goes dry. Yeah? And I put my hand on my chest like this. And that's when I feel it. His money. And I remember now that I take it before leaving the apartment. That I do it automatically without thinking. Why would I?
Oh, wow.
Here we are, back in our safe little chairs.
Oh, I think we're having trouble with your mic there, Chris. No, now you're on mute.
There we are. Are you hearing
There
me
you
now?
are. Yeah,
There
we've
we
got you
are.
now.
We're back in our safe little homes and
That's
safe,
right.
safe little lives. Sedative, anyone?
Yeah.
That was
that's such an intense piece, isn't it?
That's gritty and disturbing and a bit too well executed. The thing that
Yeah.
I really struck me artistically was the casting. Those
Yeah.
actors were so convincing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're I'm not an expert on accents, but I felt that the Estonian accent and just the idioms and the manner of speaking English
Yeah.
and the hesitancy of choosing the right phrase was brilliantly done. And
Yeah.
the other characters too, they had affectations or mannerisms, or they were really convincing, very convincing.
Yeah, absolutely. And not easy characters to play, especially, the real estate agent, the man in this piece.
It would be a
Really,
terrible character. It would be a
yeah,
terrible character to inhabit, but he's so cliche that in a way, if you could turn off your empathy and your humanity, I wonder if it might be the easiest character to play because it's a bit
he's
it's a
so
bit
deplorable.
one-dimensional. Yes,
He's
so
just
deplorable.
so deplorable.
So
Yeah,
deplorable.
yeah. Which is, I gotta say, it's tough to spend that much time with such a deplorable person. And because he's speaking directly to us, and it seemed like at times he was like he's literally trying to make us laugh and upset that we're not laughing with him. Um, like acting even more deplorable than maybe he really is. Like, I don't, there's something about how he's almost
Yes.
like forcing his
Yes, yes, yes.
horrendousness and
And reaching.
yeah,
Reaching.
really, really reaching, like trying hard to be an awful person. But it does make it difficult as an audience member, I certainly find, to spend a lot of time with him.
Yeah.
Because he's a real piece of work.
Well, I must say, I felt that way about the murderer as well.
Well,
The
absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because
yeah.
there are times and moments where I'm thinking about her, well, I don't really connect with this person, but, you know, she's got her points. But then, like, with every time she spits out the word Indian, like with
Oh, it's
every racist
awful. Oh
comment, it
my
gets
God.
harder and harder and harder to relate. And it's funny to me. I mean, this is a very strange thing to say, but the kind of the murder was almost easier for me to relate to than than her. It's like just general racist attitude toward this person. Like, you can almost feel the rage in that moment that would make her pepper spray the guy, and then one thing spirals into the other. Like, that is a dramatic path that I can not understand, not quite appreciate. Those aren't the right words, but I can go with. Whereas just being racist, just being like an ignorant Like that
Yeah.
it's hard to have any time of day for that, right?
That's a really interesting point. And in fact, the only moment of empathy, it's kind of obvious to say, but the only moment of empathy I had for the male character was when he was describing her, because he pegged it perfectly. Like, I don't even remember if he said she's a racist, but he
Yeah.
he pegs the subtle ways in which she
Yeah.
displayed her racism in a way that I actually identified with. It's the only moment of identification I had with him. It's when you are trying to explain how you know someone is prejudiced
Yes.
against you for whatever reason, and you just know it. And
You just know it. You feel it. Yeah.
yeah, and you're right.
That's
But
right.
to try and convey it to a third party is difficult. But the ways he described her, he pegged her
Yeah.
perfectly. Yeah, yeah,
Oh.
yeah. And um, I want to just say, like, both these plays are Toronto. I don't know those people. I don't know
Yes,
those
I
people.
know.
I don't know
I
those
know. Well,
people.
and very, I mean, this business of how hard it is to find appropriate housing in Toronto,
Mm,
the
that part is
things
a bit
that
true.
people do to like people put themselves out there in ways that are uncomfortable, and they stretch and they make bad decisions, and all for housing and a little bit of comfort, and because we get ourselves into these bad positions, like all of that is real in Toronto. These people can be found in Toronto. This guy, as awful as he is, I don't know him. I'm sure you don't know him,
I don't.
but he's here. Like that guy exists in Toronto, but it certainly did, as a Toronto person, make me like, oh, really? Like,
Really?
because
Are
the
we doing
country's
this
like,
again to my home
everyone,
city
yeah,
that I
this
love?
exactly. This is how everyone, not everyone, but this is a part of that stereotype of
It's a
Torontonians.
trope. It's true.
And you know, you don't, really, do we have to highlight this guy? Because it's hard as a Torontonian sometimes to carry the weight of these jerks around with you as you as you go around the country. And I got my own ways of being a jerk that I got to carry around. I don't need to carry his jerky behavior
Jerkness.
with me too, you know.
I I did there were elements of the sex worker character though that I did really appreciate, and
Yeah.
it's that there's so often a cliche about the kind of person who's a sex worker, and this woman was not it.
Yeah.
She's a hard worker, she's a good person, she's well educated, she's ambitious, she's a good person, and she's very practical because this is
Yeah.
the quickest way to make money. And um, it's also true that when you are in a profession that is not regulated and possibly on the seamy side, you do find yourself in dangerous
Yeah.
situations. And she did. And it was kind of funny how it was conveyed. I touched my chest and the money was there. And then I
Yeah.
remembered that I took the money, and it was a sort of a funny moment of like, I didn't just, I had no distaste for her when I found that out, but it was a funny moment of like, she was almost defending the action by saying, I did it without thinking.
Yeah.
I
Just
kind of thought
automatic.
you could have thought that through and decided that was a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once
That
you've
would
made
be
the other
legit too.
decisions, you might as well take
That's
the
right.
money because otherwise it's just going to burn with the
Yeah.
lighter fluid.
And interesting, I mean, she was really only in that position, as she's clearly very, very angry about. She's only in that position because of her brother, because of this close male relationship in her life. That's the only reason she's found herself there. She's otherwise a person who is doing what she's got to do to get where she wants to be in life. She's
Yeah.
moved to another country, she's studying, and she's got goals. And even when she has to do this, when she has to make her money, she, as you say, she's quite pragmatic about it. She
Yeah.
knows why she's doing it, and she's got a plan, and she's working for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a jolt when she very realistically and, without needing to stop to think about it, highlighted her own vulnerability as someone at a crime scene,
Yes.
that the status of someone who's a new Canadian is fragile,
Yeah.
and that's something I just never think about. Like, I'm a bit naive maybe, but in that situation, I would not hesitate to call the police. That's my natural reaction, and I wouldn't have to think through, am
Yeah.
I safe to do that? And that was a really poignant moment for me.
Yeah.
Which,
And then you like the contrast for that being Anna, who actually has committed this crime, has basically murdered. I mean, she has committed the crime. And what's her first instinct? Oh, I think I remember this from Law and Order. Like for her, it's like the stakes are totally different. Like
hmm
she's strangely calm. This is like a TV show for her. Whereas for
yeah,
Cassandra, who is living a life a little bit more on the edge,
yeah,
her life, she's more vulnerable in every way, and she knows it.
yeah,
And so her response is like literally, I got to burn this thing down. I
yeah.
can't be here. Um, yeah. So to compare that to just being like, hey, this is like TV, weird, eh? Like that's so stark.
I noticed the music soundtrack behind Anna was really evoking A Clockwork Orange for me.
Oh,
I don't think
interesting.
that's a coincidence. And I was thinking about your remarks about staging and
Yeah.
trying to picture. So here's what I did in my mind. I was picturing what the other two would be doing as when they're sitting behind the person speaking. And so
Yes.
my sense was they'd be, so I pictured Cassandra with a textbook, reading
Mm,
diligently with her legs nicely crossed and looking very, I'm sure she's beautiful and looking calm and focused on a textbook. That's what I imagined. And the real estate agent, he's on his phone and he's flicking and he's maybe like making a gesture to the person talking, like, would you just be quiet? I'm busy,
yeah. Oh,
and
interesting.
wasn't really sure what Anna might be doing in the background there. But it also made me think about oh, what was another? It was a factory theater one, and one of the characters was uh Christian. He was religious, and I remember talking about this then too, which is that I'm always interested when people bring religion into art because for me, I find it's a topic that I avoid sedulously. I carefully, diligently
Mm,
avoid religion for in social media, for example. I never talk about it. And it's because I feel like for one, it's kind of a private topic, but it's also a triggering topic and it's very
yeah.
easy to offend people when you raise it, no matter what position you're taking. So I'm always interested when art takes it on and is just really right out there. This character is a very religious person, brings it into her behavior, her language, and there's clearly some intense hypocrisy and lack
Yeah.
of clarity in
Yeah.
Anna's character and her experience of religion.
And they bring in religion in a couple of other, well, I mean, obviously her character is her faith is very important to her. It is a
Yeah.
big part of her upbringing, and it's part of why she makes her decisions. But so is the chosen false religion of the deplorable real
Mm,
estate agent. His religion
yes.
is the almighty dollar.
Capitalism. Yeah, he
Yeah.
talks about capitalism in the same with the
In the
same
same way,
fervor.
it's his religion. That's what he believes in. That's his faith.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah,
which
yeah.
is an interesting, I mean, that's like that's a parallel to be making.
Yeah,
That like
yeah.
that's quite a strong statement to be drawing those connections. Um,
What do you think are the connectors between this piece and crawl space from last week? And it's something I'd like our participants to think about too. And when we get to the
yeah.
Q&A, what were the common threads for you?
Well, I mean, some of the big themes, of course, being like this idea of having doing desperate things for housing and comfort. Again, it happened in slightly different ways, but you know, in Crawl Space, she wanted this house, and she winds up being in a desperate situation, and all she's trying to do is find comfort, find a home.
Hmm. Hmm.
And in this story, of course, Anna had a home and it was comfortable. and she got kicked, she got
Mm-hmm.
renovicted out of that place.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes back and she's acting her desperation as she comes back, and she's just livid. The overlap there with with housing and the way it became violent. And again, the violence is quite different. The violence
Mm-hmm.
in this one being directed squarely, physically at the real estate agent
Yeah.
is clear, but the violence with the raccoon rotting away, and then this one, I mean, a very strange, very interesting rotting of an animal, the smell of a rotting
Yeah.
animal being, and I don't know what to do with that metaphor, but it's really interesting that both of these artists, both of these playwrights
Mm-hmm.
chose the rotting smell of a
Yeah.
dying animal
Yeah.
uh to be part of and they're not used in the same way, it's not the same metaphor, but both of them wanted to include that in this piece. I found that fascinating. Do you have a thought on that? I don't quite know what to
I
make of
actually
it.
do. I actually
Please.
do. I was composing a story that I'd written myself, and I was going to be telling it rather than presenting it as a written piece. And I was talking to my brother, who knows a bit about putting things together and telling, working with different media. And he said, when you're telling a story, I don't even know where he got this nugget of wisdom, but he said, when you're telling a story, it as opposed to writing one to be read quietly, it's good to include as many sensory inputs as possible. And I thought that's brilliant. And I actually went back to my story and included something about scent and a character who was about to sneeze because of some product that was made. And I thought that's really good art piece of artistic advice. And so I think that it uh, okay, so Crawl Space was originally meant as an audio play, is that right?
No,
And this
it was
one,
a one person, but
it
it was
was
a
a one
live, it was
person.
a live production.
Yeah. So both of these are live presented things. They're not written things. And so I think
Yeah.
maybe the writer was taking that piece of
Mm.
artistic
Yeah.
advice to include the senses. And it's evocative, right? It
Oh, yeah.
succeeded disturbingly
Yeah,
so. Yeah.
when everything around you is so rotten, when the whole
Yeah.
thing stinks and is decaying and it is falling apart. In both cases, there's an economic collapse of one
Yeah.
version or another. In this one, in this piece, Iceland, it's the economy is collapsing.
Yeah.
That's the background of all of this. And in Crawl Space, her own personal finances are collapsing,
Yeah.
rotting away. So, and then an interesting, in both cases, they also brought sex into it quite explicitly.
Uh-huh.
In
Uh-huh.
Crawl Space, she starts writing about uh, she composes a sex scene, but builds in like real estate listings as well, like on the marble countertop. Do you remember that bit where she's a very explicit sex scene?
I
And
know.
then in
It's
this
so
piece,
strange.
graphic, angry.
Misogynistic, really. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So interesting to mix all of those sex and rotting animals and and economic collapse and housing. I don't have perhaps a big enough brain to bring all of them together and know exactly how and why, but I'm quite fascinated by the artist's use of all of those things. And as you say, I'm looking forward to hearing how others their thoughts on all of those
Frame
things
that.
being brought together. Yeah.
There's one more parallel that I'm noticing, which is when we listened to Crawl Space, I found it horrifying and very educational to see how trapped Karen literally became in that she couldn't, I think it was, she couldn't sell the house because of the dispute over property lines. She
Yeah.
actually could not, and she didn't have enough money to go anywhere else. She was literally trapped in that putrefying place.
Yeah.
And then Cassandra finds herself in the exact same situation. She's sort of trapped in this scenario where she's at extreme risk
Yeah.
of, her whole life collapsing if she's seen to be guilty of this crime, and very vulnerable. She's there in her underwear, right? And
Yeah.
she is also trapped by economics and by the system. I'm making air quotes.
Yeah.
And so that was a parallel that I noticed as well.
And that's an interesting one, because I'd thought about in Crawl Space, kind of her two ways out, and she only really had two ways of getting out of that and uh, being economically successful with this, with the purchase of that house. One is to just hold on and stay there and keep living there until the price goes up, until the value goes up. But that's impossible, and it's such a
Hmm.
terrible situation because it's a prison, as you've said. She's trapped there, so staying there is not really an option. The only other option she had was to tear it down. If she could have torn the
Yeah,
entire house down, she could have
yeah,
rebuilt from scratch and made a mansion. But again, she doesn't have the money for it.
yeah.
But and so tearing down is really one of the most viable options. And so what is, and in Cassandra's situation, what are her options? She's stuck right there, and her
Burn it
only
down.
option, burn it down.
Oh
That's
my
when you
gosh.
get there, when you're that trapped
Yeah,
with your housing, in your home,
yeah,
with your life, when the stakes are that high,
yeah.
what have you got left but to burn it down?
I had a description related topic I wanted to
Mm,
raise just before we get into the Q&A, and it's about the coffee shop vibe. And so when Anna is at the coffee shop, she kind of leans like, please stop taking the Lord name of the Lord in vain, which um it got me thinking about the visuals of how people ignore each other, but not
yeah.
ignore it, pretend to ignore each other, and then break the wall and stop ignoring each other. And so I know that this is something, a bit of a pastime you and I share, which is like, you walk by people on the street and you catch one line out of their conversation, and your mind is like, what's the story of that one weird line I just extracted from their conversation? And I know many of my friends do the same thing. We probably all do. We pass someone and we hear a phrase and you go, oh, what's that about? And um, you look the other way and pretend you're not paying attention, but really you're listening as
Yeah.
hard as you can to get more information. And I wonder if there's a visual, a nonverbal visual language of how that happens in public spaces, how we ignore each other or don't ignore each other, but pretend to, or start to draw attention by, talking louder. Or is there dynamics there that you can comment on
Oh
the
yeah.
visuals of?
I mean, this is such a fascinating thing, and I'm with you. I find it. I mean, it's amazing when you're in a situation where you are obviously packed in. You're at a coffee shop, you're at a library, and everyone's close together. If you're in a place like a library and you're supposed to be silent, you can be at your seat. There's a person right next to you at their seat, and a person on the other side in their seat, and everyone's reading. Because you're silent. You're supposed to be quiet. It's easier to suspend. You can just imagine yourself in a private, cozy
Hmm.
environment, and you don't have to pay attention to the people who are next to you. But if you're in a coffee shop or you're in a restaurant and your table is right next to another table, and there are people having a conversation there, and you're having your conversation or reading your magazine, it's how do we do this? How do humans in our society, how do we pretend that we're not all on top of each other in a big city, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so there are some things that you're supposed to do. There are some social rules, part of the social contract.
Mm.
And part of it is about eye contact. You don't make eye contact
Oh.
at all. And if you do make eye contact, it's got to be brief.
Oh.
It's got to end in some sort of nod or smile, like, yep, there you go, made eye contact. We've acknowledged that we kind of just that was a
Okay.
temporary lapse in the social contract, and then we'll go
Okay.
back to ignoring each other.
Oh.
And you have to obey some of those rules, otherwise it's anarchy.
Mhm.
If you do watch someone else in a public space like that, when they are pretending that they are in a private place, and you're supposed to pretend that you're in a private place, and you break that that wall, that invisible wall between, and you start clearly paying attention to them, it's it is so frowned upon. People get very upset. This is actually reminding me of there's a YouTuber who has this series of YouTube videos, and what he does is he has two phones. He's got a camera that's on him, filming him and some space behind him, and then he's talking on another cell phone, and he pretends to have very private conversations on a cell phone while there are people milling about behind him, so that he's filming himself and the people milling about around him. So he'll be in a store and there's someone like shopping behind him, and he'll start having these terribly embarrassing personal conversations, and just to film the reactions of the people who are nearby, who are overhearing him say these things. And they don't know they're being filmed. They don't know that it's all kind of a prank.
Yeah.
But it's that breaking of that wall. You're not supposed to, and it does happen. I don't know. Like, does this happen to you? You're on a bus or something like that. Someone's having a cell phone conversation, and it's loud and obviously private.
Oh yeah. Super
man.
uncomfortable. I heard the lady was talking about her medical test results. I'm like, oh, stop.
Yeah.
Don't do
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
I remember several years ago, the streetcars in Toronto, there was a new model that came out, and they went with the version where there's 4 seats and 2 seats are facing another 2 seats. And at the time, a friend of mine who I definitely thought of as an open, friendly, ready to engage with people person said, I hate this. I said, why? She said, I don't want to have to look at people. It's not
yeah.
comfortable. And I honestly couldn't relate. Like, I think I get it a bit better now, especially after your explanation. But I was really shocked at the time, because even someone who is open-hearted and talks easily to strangers did not want to be face to face with a stranger during a streetcar ride.
No, I'm totally I don't like those seats for that reason. Of course, I'll choose those seats if I'm with a group of people.
Yeah.
But having to sit and face someone, you have to actively ignore them, which is weird. It's rude and unpleasant. The whole time you're pretending that you're not facing one another, that your knees aren't
Almost touching.
basically touching,
Yeah,
or between. You've got like your knee is between their knees and their knee is between your knees. It's, oh my goodness.
You know, it's making me think. So my partner's blind also, and when we get on a streetcar, it would be natural for us to sit beside each other, even in those 4-seat things. And I bet you and Lois, when you get on a streetcar on that situation, you would automatically sit facing each other, and a seat on either side of you, each of you, would be empty.
Yeah, I you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
We would sit facing one another.
Obviously,
usually
yeah.
me facing forward, because I don't like riding backwards. It's not my favorite.
You're one of those. You're one of those. So I think I'd like to open up the Q&A, because I'm really curious to hear what others thought or felt or have to say about this piece, last week's piece, or any of the things we've talked about, or just anything at all that struck you from the piece. So I believe Lindsay is going to monitor the raise hand function. So Lindsay, if you would like to prompt people to unmute themselves in order, that would be very helpful and welcome.
Sure. I have a hand up from Louise.
Okay, go ahead, Louise.
Well, I saw something different, and I actually, maybe because I don't put 2 together and think of what was happening last week to this week, I was so into it that my brain was taking on something else. So I was seeing, in that, especially the last scene where, like in the fact that when they were, she was seeing her old home, and her anger, her jealousy, her frustration, her feelings were there so clearly. Like, God damn, and I don't want to swear, but you could almost feel her ears flaming anger, smoke out.
Yes.
I could feel her smoking ears.
Yeah, she was very angry, and
Yeah.
And
I understand it. Yeah.
you know, she was frustrated that she was taken and told, no, you can't live here because, oh, we're going to sell it. Then the person buys it and then shortly puts it on the market.
Mhm.
Again, because they fixed it up, and she was like, this is so much better than when I was here.
Mhm.
And it was you think about how she said that, like, geez, I never thought about doing this. I could have done this.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
you know, you know, it's almost like there's envy and jealousy and like frustration
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
of her own imagination at that point.
Yeah, very much so. And even though the changes were sort of cosmetic and not profound,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
it was her home. In fact, I've been rent-evicted, and you feel really betrayed. I'm like,
Oh,
what? You're gonna
yeah.
turn my whole life upside down because you want to do whatever? It's an unpleasant feeling. It's not nice, and
Oh,
it makes you very vulnerable. It makes you feel very
Well,
vulnerable.
it does. And it's one of those, it's a big problem when you combine housing and investment for when the same thing, the same product, a house, the same object, a home, is for some people the place where they live and the place where they just want to spend their lives. It's their place of comfort
Mhm.
and their place of safety. But for someone else, oh, that's just a great way to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Those things they don't play well together.
No.
And so as Anna's friend told her, it's you know, he didn't do anything illegal in this case,
Mhm.
but it was unethical. It was still
Yeah.
gross. And
Yes.
so for her, Louise, I think you're right. Like, she was just so caught up in the rage of that, of being kicked out, so that this man could just make more money,
Yeah.
and then goes and starts throwing money around like it means nothing to him anyway. Oh, enraging.
Oh.
and I guess because I've lived poor all my life, well, or very disability income, and
Mhm.
you said, and when they were saying it's in Toronto only, no, I think it's everywhere.
Of
This
course.
happens. It
Of
happens in
course.
Vancouver. It happens
Absolutely.
everywhere.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but because I mean, but what my thought is, I lost my thought for a second there. But what I was thinking is, you know, the poor man is always going to be poor. The rich man is always going to get richer because they have the money to invest.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And
It's true.
no matter how that, and I mean, I'm not an immigrant. I was born here, so I can't even imagine how she, you know, any of that part of it. I can't, you know, I
Mhm.
can imagine it, but you know what I'm saying? I'd never been in that. But
Yeah.
it's that I think the market is so fluctuating and so scary, and so even in renting, finding that
Mhm.
right place, and then no matter what, if you're renting or if you're bought, even from last week's story, it doesn't matter where you are. It's
It's
that
true. Yeah.
it's you could be in that wrong situation that screws your life
Yeah.
and turns it upside down. I mean, I feel that this world doesn't care about anyone but themselves. And I'm not talking us here. I'm talking
Of
in that.
course. Of
I'm
course.
talking
The people with power.
the people who
Yeah.
Who
have
are the people
power,
with money? Yeah.
the people with money, and they don't even think about, well, what? Okay, I can take and do whatever I want to people. I've been lucky. I've been buyers,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
bought. You know, but the
Mhm.
point is it's just the fact that people can treat each other like.
Yeah.
Commodities, which
That's
is
right.
sort of
And
what
in
he did.
and in this
And-
piece, when Anna even says, like, twice he offers her money and then throws money at her,
Yeah.
and both times she says, and let's be honest, that's a really weird thing to do. Like, she
It
says
is.
that twice. She is
Yeah.
so flummoxed by this.
Yeah.
Again, for her, this is nothing to do with money.
Do
This
with
is about
money.
her home. And
Yeah.
for
It's about,
him, it only has to do with money.
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's not just even about a fact. It's her home.
It's her
Yeah.
home. Yeah.
I was thinking something else. It's her pride. It's her identity.
It's true. It's true. I remember when I was renovated when I was renovicted, I felt degraded. Like my life and my place of safety meant nothing to the owner. And so you're right, there is a certain blow to your pride because it makes you conscious of how vulnerable you are.
And
I'm
especially when you're a renter. I mean, I rented for 9 months of my life, and I was glad to get out of that situation because she had to control the heat.
Oh yeah, it's a whole.
So I could wake up in the middle of winter at 6 o'clock in the morning when I had to get ready to go to school. The basement was cold. She didn't turn it up until 7.
Oh, I'm conscious we have a few more raised hands.
Yeah,
So,
but
Lindsay,
I'm just saying, it's feelings. It's that just let's remember there's lots of feelings out there, and no matter what, these stories help us remind us that there is feelings. That's what I was going to say.
It's a good reminder too, because even when characters are distasteful or people in our own lives are distasteful, it's a good practice to find something in their lives to empathize with. And that's something that I try my best to do. So Louise, you've really hit on a profound true thing that I found Anna extremely distasteful, and yet there's that way that we can empathize. So yeah, very well
I can't wait to see what others have to say. So
yeah.
Next up, we have Megan.
Excellent. Megan, go ahead, please.
Yes. About the throwing the pepper spray in the guy's face, I think, oh my gosh, why would you do that? That's like she's like attacking a Muslim, like a hate crime all of a sudden. Like, why would you do a hate crime or attack a Pakistani Muslim, Canadian Pakistani Muslim? I mean, that's totally a hate crime. I would never do that to anybody.
It's interesting. Sorry, Chris, I was just going to say it was interesting that when Anna was talking to her friends, like they immediately jumped right to he could be a terrorist. Like they went right there, right? They went right there. It was clearly front and center on her, on her brain in her interaction with this person. Huh. So you're right. When you mix that into her behavior, her actions, they can't be separated. Her actions and the fact that she was constantly seeing him as in her mind an Indian man. That was how she kept referring to him. It wasn't accurate, but that's how she thought. That can't be separated from her action. That's a really good point.
I mean, that's just not cool. Like, I would never do that. You think pepper spray to attack? There's been too many attacks on Muslims, too many hate crimes on Muslims.
Well, there was another disconnect there for me too, because I've been in a house where someone sprayed pepper spray or bear repellent stuff, and that's non-trivial. Like, you're in big trouble, and it was like he got it in the face and he was the only one who suffered. But I can tell you from experience that if someone sprays pepper spray inside, you're all in big trouble. So Anna would have been almost as distressed.
Oh my and after that she's like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And then another thing, sitting on his face on the pillow.
Don't even get me started. I wasn't gonna bring it up because
that's another crime right there. Attack there. Come on. You gotta respect his religion, not
next.
Yeah, like how active is that? Like I mean, to not just press it onto his face, but to sit on it. That is a choice as a writer and as a character. That is a choice.
As a writer, as a character. Oh my gosh. I really need to move on from that one, because that was one of the most disturbing parts, though. I mean, that had a lot of disturbing parts of it, but that one really threw me. Oh my God. She needed some serious, intense therapy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Shall we move on to the next? Yeah, thank you.
We have our next, it's either Sean or Christy or both.
Oh, you're now unmuted.
It's always me because I'm the chatty one.
Pretty much.
First, as a writer, I want to say that was just super. The juxtaposition of the three different cultures and how they interacted with each other, and the, the unconscious and very conscious bias it was just so visceral. That was just, yeah. I have to say, I ignored crawl space last week. I think I was doing something.
You were teaching.
Yeah, maybe I was teaching, but but Sean was pretty impressed with it. But this one, I'm glad I stuck around. I'm glad I told my student tomorrow, not today. And then as renters who blithely renovated our own space because our landlord doesn't care and is too lazy, but he probably wishes we could move out so he could charge double now or triple because our kitchen is superb. Yeah, I think we're lucky renters because we can do anything, I think, with our, and we've totally renovated. We have not been renovicted, but then we live in an apartment building, so I think it's a little easier, or at least we're not as susceptible as if we're subletting.
House, yeah.
But yeah, they weren't gonna fix my broken down counter. So we built my dream kitchen, and we're gonna build my dream bathroom. So I'm one of those lucky renters, or we are.
Yeah.
But just superb writing, and as someone of, I guess, West Indian descent, and here's the unconscious bias here. West Indians are always like, no, we're not like those East Indian people. So, okay, so we've got some unconscious bias in there. But Anna's racism did make it, but it rang true, because it's that play's just so realistic. Like, it's realistic. It was beautiful in its authenticity. And I really like how they use smell, because in my writing, I find I use that element, and I find it draws my readers in. Like, anytime I include, say, food smells, or like and it's not only because I'm partially sighted. I think I always just like, smells are one of those things that really appeal to me. So I use it a lot in my writing.
It's very evocative, even for sighted people, and the way that a scent can, I think it's like connected to the hindbrain or something, because it immediately evokes memory in such a visceral way. And that's not really what happens in this play, but it's one of the reasons that, a writer will choose to do that, is that we all know how evocative scent can be for memory and emotion.
So thank you for letting me rattle on.
Oh, thank you. I love to hear from a writer about
I think it goes without saying, I think she liked the play.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that. I'm really happy. I'd love to hear that perspective. Lindsay, do we have a more
Next
raised
up,
hand?
we do. We've got two more. We have Rita next.
Okay, go ahead, Rita.
Okay. Yeah, I found this really fascinating. And of course, the staging of the places, the condo or the house or whatever. I mean, that's what the agent is doing, the real estate agent is doing. They stage it so that they can make a lot more money. And this guy, the real estate agent, he actually expresses it quite clearly how they do it, whereas the person last week was the victim of it. But so that was kind of interesting. And I think I agree with a lot of the stuff. I didn't care for the guy, but I didn't care for Anna at all. But her head must be really off, because I mean, to say, don't let them suffer, and she sits on his head so he'll die. I mean, that's what, because her mother told her that, she let her guinea pig suffer, right? So that's how she's justifying actually murdering the guy.
Yeah.
She says, don't let them suffer. And she takes the pillow and she sits on it on him.
And even while she's sitting there, she says, like, I don't understand why God didn't tell me to call 911.
911. Yeah, that's really weird.
That's
It's
very
just,
strange.
yeah, where's her head, or
Yeah.
her, I just don't know, but
It's a very
there,
unflattering depiction of religion, that's for sure, because
yeah,
she's
Yeah.
she carries soap in her purse because she's actually seems more disturbed by the fact that she used the Lord's name in vain and needed to punish herself for
yeah,
that
right,
Yeah.
than she
right,
was by the
yeah,
fact that she had just killed somebody. So it's a very unflattering depiction of
yeah,
religion,
yeah,
for
Yeah.
sure.
And I guess it's that maybe it's similar to the real estate agent's relationship with his religion. It's the relationship with the religion that's so toxic, right?
Mm.
The
yeah,
like you say, like the carrying around of the soap, the obsession over taking the Lord's name in vain and doing horrific things in the name of your religion. And carry around, how does he carry around his money in the money clip? Like he's thought about how he's going to carry it around and show it off, and everything he does is for the money, for this, he's
right.
a capitalist, a capital C capital,
And
the
oh my gosh,
dedication.
it's a sledgehammer, really, because that bit where he folds the bill into a square like a communion wafer,
Oh yeah, exactly,
whoa, that's like
exactly.
sledgehammer material right
Oh yeah,
there.
yeah,
It's
Yeah,
yeah, harsh.
yeah.
Yeah, you're
Thanks,
right.
Rita.
Not right in the head. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah. Lindsay, who is next?
Yeah, we've got another one last hand here, I think, and that's from Eric.
Okay, go ahead, Eric.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I guess I guess Rita, what's her name, Anna Godwin, comes across very well, created by a religious background and a mother that's going to inflict her version of Christianity on her, and including the mercifully killing people. I do feel like a little bit used because really women don't go out and kill people very often. 92% of all murders are done by who, the men in the room. And she becomes our instrument in this play. And she's going to do the most horrible thing and actually be able to do it with very little means. Like she's going to have the bear spray and a pillow and dispatch this horrible creation of a guy who's ripping people off. And we'd like to we get a little bit of a thrill vicariously about her doing that, and an even further thrill by the whole place burning in a kind of sacrificial scene. And then the final line of like trivialization of it's blame it on Iceland, right? It's just it's a lovely play, and but I do feel sort of slightly manipulated by the conclusions.
Oh, I love that you said that. I love that you said that because I often feel that way about some kinds of art and the ways they draw you in or repel you on purpose and take you on these journeys. It's interesting what you just said. It drew another connection for me, which is that each of those characters does something reprehensible, and it's not completely like, so what's worse? Murdering someone? Exploiting people and not caring about them because all you want is money? Or burning down an apartment where you might hurt other people? Or some might say it's the sex work. Like for some puritanical people, sex work is the really bad, the bad. So there's the play is just sort of full of moral, terrible
Dilemmas.
moral choices and dilemmas. And which one's the worst? I mean, that's no contest for me. It's Okay, well, actually, never mind. I didn't say that. They're all they're all very, very morally questionable choices that are made. But I and the manipulated part, it was interesting, like the way the play started. You're jumped right into the middle of a scene, literally, and also um just in the delivery of the actor, the way it's written and the way she delivers it, like she's almost in mid gasp as she starts speaking, and I feel like that's kind of manipulative too. And sometimes when art manipulates me, I thank art for manipulating me. And sometimes when art manipulates me, I want to smack it in the face and say, you don't get to do that. And so I think you make a really good point about, you know, I felt manipulated by this play too, but in a way I really didn't like. And sometimes when art manipulates me, I go, man, that's brilliant. You
Oh, good
just
on you.
totally,
Yeah, you got
yeah,
me. You used
you got
what I
me.
was thinking and feeling, and you took me somewhere with it, or yeah. But it's not always a good feeling. It's not always comfortable. That's for
I
sure.
want to share something from a sci-fi show called The Expanse, and it's so brilliantly written. Now I'm a very tree-hugging, pacifistic, thin-skinned person, and there's a scene where someone is shot, and it's pretty bloody, it's pretty in your face, and the way it's all set up and the way the characters build toward it, at the end of the scene, I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And that's a big thing for me to say that a murder scene was brilliant. That's just not something I would do. But in this case, the whole the whole season that led up to this scene was so brilliantly done that I was manipulated into going, that murder scene was absolutely brilliant. And so I love, Eric, that you said that, but that we're all manipulated by it. And in this case, this just happened to be manipulated in a way that I didn't enjoy. Do we have any more raised hands, Lindsay?
We do not.
Okay. JJ, any concluding thoughts?
Oh my!
Would you seek out would you seek out another play by this writer? I'll just say right now I wouldn't.
You know what? I think I would. I agree that the writing was. The writing was very strong. The to create these characters as well as they were created, I thought was quite impressive. Like I said, I'd like to I would like to learn more about the staging of it. I would find that fascinating just to learn how they reacted or didn't react to each other on the stage. It's interesting that your thought about that was a lot of the time in your description of imagining this staging, they were ignoring each other and they were in their own private worlds, which I found very interesting. I wondered when they would be connected, when they wouldn't. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what other things that this author has to say. What are the other thoughts they've got on the world that we're living in and people and what we're capable of, and yeah. And what are their thoughts on today? This was, written about the 2008 crisis. What about current the crises that we're currently going through? What do they have to say about that? I would check them out. You not so much?
You would? No, it's just not a genre that I feel kind of like Eric, like I was manipulated, and it was too gritty. It was too gritty for my taste. And I'm not a shrinking violet when it comes to, okay, I am about violence, but it wasn't the graphicness of the sexual content or anything like that, or the themes, but it was too gritty. And that man, he was just too awful.
It's very genuinely difficult to spend that much time with that person. And listening to it again this second time, I felt that quite viscerally. Like, why am I still letting this guy in my house? Get this guy out of here.
Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Which, if nothing else, is a testament to how well done it was.
Exactly. Yeah.
So perhaps we have reached the prize time of the evening. Is that a possibility? I think we're there.
And
we
so
are here. Yeah. So I believe it's JJ's role to, when Lindsay is ready, to come up with the word of the evening to designate who the prize goes to.
All right, I'm ready. Are you ready, Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm ready. Ready when you
All
are.
right. I'm going to say renoviction.
Oh, good.
We got Rita.
Rita!
We got the
Hey, go Rita.
All right.
Yay.
All right. All right. Well, I believe that will be the end of our recorded event. As always, you are welcome to stick around for some post-show chit chat.
VocalEye, vocaleye.ca. Special thanks to our funders, the Canada Council for the Arts, the British Columbia Arts Council, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Vancouver.